Thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. Today I'm going to show you how I use this hand-drawn mandala on one of my art journal pages. I've been drawing mandalas for years. I find them really relaxing and fun to do the repetitive images and doodle it and make it look really fun and interesting, and I love using them in my art journal, so I'm going to share with you how I do that. And if you'd like to follow along and use this same mandala in your art journal, there's a link below for where you can find this mandala image. The first thing I want to do is to thank Cecilia and Debbie for buying me cups of coffee, for Judith for a tip to my tip jar, and for Mimi for the beautiful box of Happy Mail art supplies. So I just want to thank everybody. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for watching, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying my tutorials. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and color this image. When you print it out, I printed it out onto mixed media cardstock, mixed media paper, and you could print it on regular paper. It just depends on how you want to color it and how you want to use it. So there's a bunch of different ways, and I have a video that I'll link in the description box below for different ways that you can use digital stamps. So that'll give you some ideas of different ways that you can use this image and other digital images. So the first thing you're going to want to do is print it, and again, I printed on good paper, so I'm using mixed media paper, and it comes in a JPEG or a PDF file. So JPEG, you can resize it, so you could make it bigger or smaller, and PDF is going to be 8.5 by 8.5. So for coloring purposes, I think this time I'm going to use some alcohol markers and colored pencils to color my image. I'm going to use the Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend pens. I received these in my Happy Mail box from Mimi, and I'm playing around with them and getting used to using them, and so I thought they'd be kind of fun to color this mandala image, since I like to do a lot of shading, and these pens have 3 different levels of color in each pen, so that'll be fun for shading. And then once it dries, I always go back over it with colored pencil to add more shading and detail. When I'm coloring a mandala, I like to use bright colors and make it as cheerful as possible. And if you've never colored one before, I highly recommend it. It's just a relaxing and meditative kind of an art process to draw a mandala or color a mandala. So I'm using a lot of different things. I'm really enjoying using those Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend pens. They're really fun. Look at what a nice shading job they do. So that's working out really nicely. And I'm using some Ecoline brush pens. They can be blended with water with a water brush, and you can use colored pencil over them as well. So I was going to use some Tombow markers, but Tombow tends to fade a little bit, and I don't want this to fade too much in my journal, so I'm sticking to Ecoline because they're a little bit more light fast. And always choose colors, of course, that you're drawn to, that you're feeling in the mood for. Blues and greens are just, green is healing and blue is meditative, and those are the colors that I'm choosing and needing today. So the other thing I found that I really like using on mandalas are these Artiza brush pens. They are water soluble, so you can put a little bit on and go around the edges of the space that you're coloring in, like this section here that has bubbles, and then you can take a water brush just with plain water and you can blend out that color so that it is darker around the edges and lighter in the middle, and it makes it look nice and shaded. So these are really fun and easy to use for coloring in mandalas, and because they have a nice pointy brush tip, it's easier to get in little small spaces. So If you're looking for something fun to use, these work really well, and colored pencils go over them easily too. So check out Arteza brush pens, and I'm not sponsored by any company. I'm just telling you the supplies that I use and that I love. So if you haven't tried them, give them a shot, but look how pretty that looks. I like to make dark shadows to make things really dimensional, and this is going over and adding some colored pencil over the alcohol ink. And let me show you a quick tip for that. So this is a Koh-i-Noor colored pencil. Let's see if you can see that, Koh-i-Noor, and it is the Polycolor. And what I like to do is go back in, and so here's this solid blue right here, and let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Okay, and you want to just use a really super light hand. So I want it darker in that inner spot, gradually going out. So you want to just put down a really, really light-handed layer. I'm hardly using any pressure. I'm not pushing down at all. I'm just lightly coloring, because then you can go back in and you can add in another layer, a second layer, and you can push a little bit harder on the second layer as you blend it out, and you're going to get a really nice smooth gradient. See how that's starting to shade really nice? And then to get really dark, you can come in here heavy-handed in that point and kind of just feather it out. And using some feathery strokes, feathering it out, and look what you end up with. That's a really nice gradient shadow. So instead of it just being a plain solid space like this, that's what it looks like to add some colored pencil over the top. So again, light-handed, hardly even holding onto the pencil. On its side, I'm using the side of the lead on its side and just shadowing it out. I'm not putting any in this area. I'm only going about 2/3 of the way, and then I'm adding a second layer, so you can see it's starting to build up and get darker, and then I'm going back in heavy-handed in the point and feathering it out to make it really dark in that spot. And I end up with a nice shadowed area. Now I'm going to take some Posca, Uniposca glitter pens and just add some details. So I'm going back over the green, and I'm going to just add some glitter to it because I like some sparkle. And I'm not coloring the whole triangle because I want it to look like a gem. So I'm just going to fill in like that, and it just looks pretty. Just add something. I like adding little details, and as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to go and spray this with some matte fixative just to seal it in, keep the colors from fading, and then the last step will be to take some Nuvo Drops and add some Nuvo Drops to it, so we'll have even more dimension. So it's just preference. You can do whatever you want in coloring yours, and it just makes it pretty for adding it to the page. Then I'm also taking, this is Spectrum Noir Sparkle ink, and it's clear, but it's just got a really beautiful iridescent shine to it. And I'm going into those white spots, and look at that glitter. I'm adding where these are white. I'm just going in with a paintbrush and painting in that glitter ink so they stay, those spots stay white, but they're nice and sparkly. And you can add this over a color too, and it's because it's clear ink with just the glitter in it, it can go over any color. But I just wanted to enhance those white spots with a paintbrush. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to make your mandala really pretty. Now I'm going to take this outside, and I'm going to spray a light coat of Blair Matte Spray Clear. It is just a finishing spray to just seal this in. And so I'm going to take it outside because of the fumes. So I'm going to do a light spray, and I'll be right back. So I went out and spray sealed it, and I love that sealer. It dries super quick, I mean within minutes, and look at how vibrant. It just brings out the colors and it seals it in, and just, it's so beautiful. I love it. And you could now go back in and add more colored pencil even over the top of this and keep adding layers of spray and pencils and things if you wanted to, but I'm done with my mandala, and it kept the shiny parts shiny. And now what I'm going to do is use some Nuvo Drops as accents. If you did this first and let it dry and then sprayed it, this is really bright and shiny, and if you spray over it, then it's going to become dull. So I like to do my Nuvo Drops as my very last step. But I love Nuvo Drops because you can come in and add that little dimensional touch to it by just adding some dots. And I'll show you what it looks like. So see how that just adds a little bit more dimension to it. So I added my Nuvo Drops, and you want to put those aside and let those dry for a really long time so they don't get squished or out of shape. You want your dots to stay nice and pretty. So I'm going to just put that aside while I work on my background on my page. And I'm working in a large Ranger's Dilutions journal. So I'm just going to turn this to a page, and I'm going to just do a very basic paint background to start. So I'm going to start with a light color and work my way up to darker, and I'm going to do a lot of stenciling and layers and splatters and textures. This is going to be a really fun background with a lot of textures and layers. So I start with light. I like to start with a light color when I do that and then add to it on top of it. And you want transparent layers so that you can see what's underneath. So I'm going to do some stamping and some splattering and all kinds of stuff just to make this really, really, really artsy. So the more you add and the more layers that get on there, the better it's going to look. So this is just all kinds of things. Brayered paint, stamps with all different ink colors and different patterns. And it's not too much thought process put into it because I'm just trying to make a interesting background. And I'm going to push a lot of this back. I'm going to use some smooth white gesso, and I'm going to water that down. I'm just putting a little on my mat, and I'm going to water it down a little bit. And then I'm going to take my sponge and pick it up, and I'm going to go in and dab over this, and what that's going to do is to now push that back so it's not so vibrant. You'll still see the patterns through it, but it'll be pushed into the background. So see the difference between the two sides. This one I've added white gesso, smooth gesso, and this one I haven't, and it's just keeping those patterns, but it's pushing the designs back a little bit so they're just not so stark and bright. And I'm just tapping with my sponge all over the page, and I love the result. It's so pretty when you look at it closely. It's pretty and you see the patterns, but it's not so in your face like it is over here. So I'm going to do that to the whole thing. So after that point, you can continue to add more to it. So now add another layer. I can continue to splatter some paint, do some more stamping, add some more stenciling. Whatever you want to do, you can continue to do it. And then you can go through that same process again of putting your gesso over the top to push it back again. For me, I really love how this turned out. And that's what you have to do. You have to play around with it and you stop when you like it. And for what I'm wanting to achieve on this page, I like it, so I'm going to stop there. So as you can see, I've used some of the colors from the mandala in that background underneath the gesso so that the mandala is going to pop. And then I'm also going to do darker behind the mandala. So I like this background, and now what I'm going to do is to trim out the mandala image with a pair of scissors. Next, I'm going to go around the edges with a black brush marker, and that's just to get rid of that white edge. I always like to get rid of that and have it just look more finished. So I'm going to do that edge. And then what I'm going to do, it's going to go on the page here. Let me move this out. It's going to go on the page here. And I'm going to need to make a fold in it. And what I do to do that is to just take a ruler, put it down the crease of the page over the image. I mean, it could go over here and it would fit, but I really want it to be across both pages. And you can do whatever you want. You can cut this and just separate it slightly in the gutter so that it folds up nicely. You can do it however you want to do it in your journal. But I found that this works too, to just take it and make a fold so it's going to get folded with the page. And then what I'm going to do next is to take a pencil and I'm going to just mark where it's going to go on the page. So I'll just do a little bit of marking so I'll know where to line it back up again. And that's also going to show me where I can put a darker circle, because I want a really, really deep, deep navy blue behind that. So now I know where it's going to be and I can make a navy blue circle. With the next, I'm taking one of these. It's actually a cosmetic brush for foundation, and it works great for adding paint to your page. And I've mixed some black and some navy blue together because I wanted this to be pretty dark. And I'm going to use this brush to make my dark circle that's going to go behind that mandala. And the edge of it is just kind of nifty. It just makes it look, I'm kind of dry brushing it. This is not wet. I did not wet this brush, so it's a dry brush technique. So as you go around, it's spreading it out and it's making it very sketchy looking. See how that looks? I love that look. Dry brushing is so pretty. Okay, now I'm going to let that dry. And to keep your tools nice, be sure you immediately go and wash your brush out with soap and water and then let it air dry so it doesn't get stiff from the paint. For the inner part of the circle, what I did was to take some Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 crayon and just colored all around in that inner part of the circle. I dampened my sponge and then I'm just kind of dabbing it and blending it out. And I'm going to put a little of it out here. Maybe go a little bit out here. That's just to bring that color out. It's a water soluble, so you can add water with your sponge and just dab it. You can smear it, you can put it over a stencil, you can kind of do a little of everything with it. So this is what it's going to look like when I put my mandala in place. That's going to be really pretty. I like it. And I'm just going to use art glitter glue to glue that into place. But before I go ahead and glue that down, I've decided that I want to add some more mandalas into the background, and I'm going to put a link in the description box below for this set of stencils. There are, I think 36, I'm not 100% sure, but it's all mandalas, and they're just a really nice size, I think about 3 inches, and they would look really nifty in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and stencil some of these mandalas in the background. I love the mandala stencils in the background. It's looking super fun. And there's little tiny bits of orange in here, so now I'm going to take a Posca pen, and it is the 1.8 2.5 millimeter, and so it makes kind of a nice dot size. And I'm going to go around and add some dots around the border. And this is just going to make it really tie in with that background, because it's going to be part of the background. And it just adds some more embellishment to it. So let me hold that up and show you what that looks like. See? So this is a good time to add your embellishments. And I'm going to also do some white dots, I think, some swirls. I may even add some extra lines to the mandala. So now I'm going to take a fine point Posca pen, and I'm going to go and where these points come from the design, I'm going to add a point border around my mandala image right on that background. Just like that. So I'm going to go around and go point to point and connect them. And I'm going to do that all the way around. So here's what that looks like, adding the paint to the outside, and I'm just going to continue to do more doodling on my page, add my words, and then I'll come back and show you the finished page. So here's how it came out. I added a lot of doodling with paint pen around my mandala to bring it out into the page, and then I added the words, "Art is my happy place." So this is my page and how I used my mandala digital stamp on my art journal page. I hope you enjoyed it and that it inspires you, and that you want to try using a digital stamp on your art journal page and do a mandala, because they just bring you happiness and they're so much fun to color and add to your art journal. So thanks for stopping by, and have a great day. Go make art, because art soothes the heart.